Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Touch MBA podcast. This is your host, Darren. Great to have you here. This week, I had Vince Ricci from vinceprep.com on the show to talk about interviews. Interviews are an increasingly important part of the application process, whether that's a real live interview or even, an increasing number of schools using videos. Having video essays or asking video questions in their application. I think that's quite related to interview practice as well. So I've only done one episode on interviews, and so I wanted to get a real master at this craft to be on the show. Vince has been a full-time admissions consultant for close to 15 years, and he's put out an insane number of really useful videos on his YouTube channel on how to prepare for interviews and interview techniques and what questions to prepare for. So I wanted to get Vince on the show and just pick his brain in terms of the common challenges applicants face in the interview. So we delve into all sorts of topics in this conversation. I think you'll find it really useful. Vince has just a lot of experience and great tips to share. Just a reminder that we also offer free school selection help at touchmba.com. Yes, that's right. We do have a website. So if you're having difficulty figuring out which schools fit you best, where you might be competitive at, go head over to touchmba.com and we offer free expert help there as well. So do check that out. And now to my chat with Vince Ricci. I'm really looking forward to today's guest. I admire him not only because of his insight, but because of his generosity in putting out over 120 YouTube videos on MBA admissions over the last 7 years, some of which I think are the best in the business. Vince Ricci has been an admissions consultant for over 15 years. He has his own business at vinceprep.com. He's the director of admissions counseling for AIGAC Japan, and he's the president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, or AIGAC, which is the longest. It's a pretty long acronym.
Yeah, it's a great acronym, isn't it?
It's a great acronym, and Vince is just a really interesting guy. He graduated from Stanford and studied education and theater there and got his master's from NYU in Instructional Design. So I highly encourage you to check out all his videos, which you can find on YouTube. Just search Vince Ricci or Vince Prep and you'll find them. But Vince, I've had you on my radar for a really long time, so I'm really excited to talk to you. Welcome to the Touch MBA podcast.
Thanks, Darren. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I noticed that some of your most popular videos are about interviews on your YouTube channel. So I thought we would focus on how applicants can best prepare for those nerve-wracking interviews. I've only done one episode on interviews myself, and you're the master here. So let's just get straight to it. What do you think are the big themes or organizing thoughts for applicants to keep in mind when they're preparing for their interviews? Because it can be so overwhelming, right? You don't know what the interviewer is going to ask. You want to make a good impression, but you want to be yourself. So yeah, what are sort of your big reminders to the clients you work with regarding interviews?
Well, I guess the main thing is you should prepare for the interview, prepare for what the interview actually is. People have been the written application is so overwhelming and intensive, and people put so much effort into it. A lot of people do, and that's great. I think the hardest thing is to shift gears. So my metaphor, one of them, I have too many metaphors, right? But in this case, I like to think of it as a triathlon. The admissions process overall, I used to say it's a marathon, but I like triathlon better because it's 3 different events. And I've never done a triathlon. I'd probably die. But from what I've heard, the run is at the end. After the swim and the bike ride, you've got to still run, I think, a marathon or something crazy in the Ironman, right? So I had a client who did this once. That's what he told me. And then a friend's done one as well pretty recently. So got to switch gears. So in this case, if this metaphor, get off the bike. If test prep is the swim, and if writing the written application is the bike, then get off the bike and then start running. Change up your method. Don't write, basically. The biggest mistake is people are like, okay, I'm going to start by gathering up 100 questions and making scripts. And that's not just, I thought that was just in Japan because I started doing my work here. Now I have clients around the world, but folks everywhere, that's the instinct. And it's a bad instinct because it's gonna keep you from having a realistic conversation. So in short, the way to prepare for interviews by having conversations. You may need to organize your thoughts before and after those practices, but if you use sports, I guess, as a metaphor, playing tennis or ping pong, if you will, you're not going to do it in your head, right? You're not going to draw pictures of yourself playing ping pong. You got to play. And you can play against a wall, I suppose, but you need to play with someone else. So my clients, they meet me, but what I love to do is introduce them to each other. And then for every session they have with me, they'll do some work on their own. I have a thing on my website about talking to a mirror, which is a trick from acting. But in between talking to yourself, they'll do, okay, you go for 30 minutes, I'll interview you, and then you interview me. There's all kinds of ways to do it that don't necessarily involve hiring a professional. I think just like any sport or instrument, you want to use a professional strategically. I don't want someone to do three days in a row with me or something. I want people to plan ahead. So their interviews on Saturday, I don't want them to work with me Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I just can't. Whatever feedback I'm going to give them, they need time to work it out. Because I'm not telling people what to say. It's more, I'm trying to help them fail with me so they don't fail in the real one. So.
No, that's really interesting. As a former tennis player myself, I completely agree. There's only one way to learn tennis, and that's to get out on the court, right? Not to read about it in a book or to write out, how you're going to hit a forehand. So let's talk about the mirror method. Because let's say that a lot of applicants, I feel, are kind of in their own bubble. And I've tried to encourage them to, break out of that bubble, whether that's talking to students or alumni or family and friends and sharing their essays or doing interviews with their family and friends. But let's say they don't have those people around. How can they tell us about this mirror method that's used in acting and how you think it can help someone prepare for an interview?
Well, it's only an initial thing. So you use it. So, because acting is a bad metaphor for interviews, because if you're doing, unless you're doing improv, if you're doing Shakespeare or whatever, some play that's written by a playwright, you're supposed to learn his words or her words. So the mirror method is really good for basically getting you off script, looking at yourself. It's also a great way to find your character. How does your character stand? How does your character talk? But, knowing how to carry your body so you can convey not just the words that the playwright wrote, but the decisions you're going to make as a character. So it's an imperfect metaphor for interviews for a whole bunch of reasons. But the thing that is good about it is it keeps you from reading. It forces you to talk. It's the closest thing to talking, it's the most conversational thing I could think of other than having a real conversation. Because we just kind of go back to our script otherwise. So it's only an initial tool. It's kind of an intermediate stage between making note cards or whatever you're going to do to just jot down some key core ideas and then actually practicing those. So it's a sort of intermediate step. It's definitely not the final step. The final step's the real interview, but it's just a step. It's a way to practice. Maybe, I guess I'd say, but before you had a consulting, if it was a client of mine, I would want to know that and also the mirror method, as I outline it, it's really just it's kind of just a method for practicing the sort of 10 or 11 most common questions.
Mm-hmm.
The predictable ones about walk me through your resume or what's your goal, why MBA, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're really predictable ones. And a good interviewer gets away from those pretty quickly or digs deeper. So it's definitely not the master course. It's just the basics.
Yeah, I'll be sure to link to that post that you wrote in terms of the mirror method and the 10 common questions you list there. But I agree. I've done helped some applicants with interview prep, and I feel, speaking to the mirror, but also, which is just as important to me, is like recording yourself,
yes.
which I also interpret as the mirror method too. Anything
Yep.
that can reflect what you're saying, because you realize how many times you're stuttering or not really coherent or maybe rambling on and on. Trust me, I'm all too familiar with this, hosting a podcast and having to listen to myself. So I can speak from experience here that, definitely what you want to do at the very least is record yourself answering these questions just to hear what you sound like. And so you can do that on any phone these days. So I'd encourage all of you to do that to prepare as well. But the idea is to get speaking and to stop writing, as Vince said at the very beginning. If you think that candidates, shouldn't overscript their responses, how should they prepare then? You know what I mean? In terms of, because obviously you want to be prepared before that big interview, but you don't want to be too scripted. So what would you recommend there?
Use questions, not statements. So break every answer down into a series of questions. So walk me through the resume, for example, is why did I choose this university or this major? Why did I choose this job or that job? So looking at transitions. So memorize questions, not statements or certainly not whole paragraphs. So why do I need an MBA? I'm trying to change my career. What career am I pursuing? I'm trying to get into management consulting. What appeals to me about management consulting? So break it down to memorize questions or follow-up questions, because a good interviewer asks follow-up questions. It's easy enough to predict what, you can study question lists and it's easy enough to predict what some common questions are, what the difference between a good interviewer and just a typical interviewer, whatever. What the mark of a great interviewer is, she asks great follow-ups. I think not so much amazing questions. There's so many original questions, unless they're being clever and they want to ask some stupid thing about how many ping pong balls,
I was going to say, whatever, exactly.
Like that. But it's about the follow-ups. So you can predict the follow-ups, if you will, by framing your answer as a series of questions.
But isn't that also quite intimidating, because there's an infinite number of follow-up questions too that could be asked?
It could be, yeah. I mean, you could fall into a rabbit hole, of course. So it's definitely, it's not a logic puzzle. Hopefully. Why is the sky blue? Like talking to a 4-year-old. But yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, but I think the word you said that really stuck out to me is the transitions. So, because really in an interview, I did a bunch when I was an admissions director, and you're trying to delve deeper. That's really, in my opinion, obviously when I interviewed someone, I wanted to make sure that person matched up with the person who applied on paper. That was one reason we did it. But we also wanted to delve deeper. We wanted to go beyond, right, what applicants had presented in their essays and recommendations and so forth, so, or resume, etc. So I think that's like really true, to anticipate the follow-up questions. And I mean, if candidates can't work with a consultant, how could they do that? You think the best way is to actually do practices with other applicants, for example, as you suggest?
If you could find them, yeah. If you're not too isolated, if you're taking a test, even a test prep class, and there's someone in the class that you resonate with, and you're like, hey, let's trade some time with each other. It doesn't mean you're experts, but A lot of this it's not rocket science, and for a lot of the schools, the interviewer is an alum. So unless they're working in HR or have some career background that makes, that like yourself working in admissions, or unless they've worked a job where they've conducted lots and lots of interviews, most interviewers are just going on they haven't thought too deeply about it, and they're just going to ask a fairly standard questions and ask fairly standard follow-ups. They're not, they're probably not going to really do anything too strange. So yeah, practice with other people. Some of my clients also, there's so much online stuff these days where they, in between working with a professional, they'll also sometimes do like an online English, conversation lesson that can be quite affordable on an hourly basis. They just give their conversation partner, okay, please, hey, here's some questions I want you to ask me today, and just listen and ask follow-ups, as you like. But they're not expecting that person to have subject area knowledge of the degree or the school. But it's more just, does my answer make sense? How could I make it better? How could I make it shorter?
Yeah. So, what are your guidelines there, like in terms of how long, applicants should respond to each question? Do you have any guidelines you advise?
Well, there's this thing about, I don't know the metaphor, but, because our clients are in business, so it's like the airplane, it's like talking to it's like you could talk about bars, but people don't really go to bars much anymore, I don't think. And also talking to a stranger at a bar is kind of laden with weirdness. But so like an airplane, you're on a couple hour flight somewhere and you're bored, and the person next to you seems, whatever, not crazy. So you're just passing time, and there's no great movie on the little movie thing, and you've read the in-flight magazine 3 times. And so you just strike up a conversation. So what are you doing? Where are you going? It's like, you kind of don't really want your answer to be that much longer than it would be. These are strangers, right? It should be conversational. Sometimes I say 2 minutes or 1 minute, but basically as short as possible.
As short as possible, but
not one word, not but just answer what was asked.
Yeah.
One thing people do is they want to go through the whole story. Tell them about a time when you were struggling at work, and they want to give it to you in like an essay and then I learned. So in conclusion, I learned that's not natural.
So I have 2 questions about that.
Sure, please.
So the first one is, so I agree. I think shorter answers are more effective, as long as you're answering the question, like you said. But I think one that trips over a lot of applicants is the walk me through your resume question, because what if you've worked 8 years or something? It's different if you've only worked 1 year, so you talk about college and your one job, but most applicants have 6 years of work experience around there, so they're cycling through multiple jobs. How can they keep that short and tight and get their message across? Do you have any tips?
It's a great point. Yeah, as you said, that's a unique one. For there, I say 2 minutes. As just a general guideline, I don't know where that number comes from. I guess 1 minute seems too short, but 5 minutes is really too long.
Yeah.
Even if you've worked 15 years, if it's an executive MBA, I still think there should be a way to gloss over certain things. It's a walkthrough. So pick the 3 biggest decisions you've made career-wise and focus on that. Or some people try a thematic approach. 3 things so the keywords to know about me are A, B, and C, and you can see those throughout my resume particularly. So you're more of a high-level summary or a synthesis or an analysis, as opposed to and then 6 months later, like, whoa, we're still 10 years ago. Yeah, we're still 10 years away. So I still think that I encourage everyone to try to have a 2-minute version.
Right. So when sorry, go ahead. No, please.
No.
I want you to talk, Vince, not me.
So case in point, just insert pauses. You want people to interrupt you and clarify. So take a break once in a while. And even if you don't finish, big deal. It's not a quiz. It's not TOEFL, right? You don't have to finish. If it goes off on a tangent, I don't think that's a terrible thing. Right? They're not going to ding you. Oh, wait, he never finished walking through his resume.
Yeah.
They give you a bad recommendation.
No, that's really
insert some
good
pauses.
Tip. Yeah, insert some pauses. And when you say focus on 3 career decisions, what exactly do you mean there?
Well, for example, if you've had so let's say you've had typical applicant, whatever, 27 years old, done 2 jobs. So 3 biggest career decisions are probably perhaps university, if there's a connection there to make. Either you're doing what you studied or you're not. Either way is fine, but maybe you do want to explain why you majored in chemistry, but then you became a consultant or whatever, So I was really interested in science all through high school. I chose my university because it had a really great hard sciences program, and I stuck to that goal. But then I was looking around at what some of my friends were doing at graduation, and a few of them went into consulting. And so I thought it would be a great way for the first 2 years of my career to learn about a whole bunch of different things and help companies, and also work with decision makers, giving advice and using a bunch of really clever tools. And then from that, I found an industry that really fascinated me was consumer products. I didn't ever really think that was something I'd get involved with. It uses chemistry, but it's, the decisions and marketing. I just like working with tangible, maybe it relates to science, but I like tangible products. So one of my clients was in the consumer products industry. We got along really well. And after I'd fulfilled my commitment to the consulting company, they hired me, and now I'm a marketing director for whatever shampoo, it's career decisions, like just the reasons why. I haven't been interviewed in a really long time, but the last time I got interviewed for a job and it was an HR type person, that's what they seem to want to know. Okay, why'd you choose this? And then why'd you choose that? And I just sort of felt that was probably a reasonable place to start, because that stuff's not in the resume, right? You can't really write that down.
Yes.
So much. It's implied, maybe, but you want to make it explicit.
Gosh, that is so brilliant. I think you're totally right to focus on the why, the decisions and the reasons behind them. That's so good. The other question I wanted to ask in terms of the length of a response question was, applicants are often read or told to use like the STAR method or the PAR method, which is problem, action, result, or situation, task, action, result. It's a kind of storytelling technique, right? But you were saying how sometimes it can sound too scripted, but perhaps a common question would be something like, tell us what you're most proud about. Or so how can, I just want to get your tips here, in terms of using those storytelling methods, but keeping your answers concise. Is it really just practice? One. Yeah.
Definitely practice and play around with it. Get comfortable with the story itself. The good thing about behavioral questions is, behavioral, as far as what I've read, is behavioral questions they're sort of designed to keep you honest, right? Because you never want to make anything up, because a good behavioral interviewer can ask for like minute detail and catch you, in a lie or a fabrication or an exaggeration. So first of all, always be really honest about stuff that really happened, and don't exaggerate in any way, because you'll get trapped later. I think that's part of it, and maybe that goes without saying. But but then in terms of practicing, so if you're using PAR or STAR, one trick is summarize the result first. So this is where journalism comes in. So think of what's the headline? So to use your question, what are you most proud of? Well, I'm most proud of whatever, turning my team around from an underperforming group to one of the best groups in our industry, whatever that is. Just say the headline. So, or even better, that wasn't very good. Maybe you even want to use some kind of a metric, right? So turning 3 years in a row of losses to a first profitable year in 4 years, growing sales, if you're doing sales or something measurable, give the result first. Summary, as a headline, if you will. So it's almost result, then star. It's almost R star or whatever, R par. So it's just a brief headline, if you will. That's one trick or tip to give a summary, to directly answer the question.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just pause in between each section, because your interviewer may have legitimate questions about something you said about the situation, and you're already in the action step. And they're like, wait a minute, where were you? When was this?
That's really good. And Sorry, your pausing technique is working on me. I keep interrupting you.
No, it's cool. It's good because I'm trying to talk too much.
Were you saying something or?
No, I was just thinking out loud or mumbling to myself about. I always struggle with how to explain this, but I don't know if the pause thing. I say that, and clients don't necessarily like it. I'm still struggling with how to explain how to practice behavioral questions. It's a big question for me too, actually. I haven't hit upon the one best way.
Okay. Gosh, I had a question for you. It just slipped my mind. Oh, yes. Yeah. So this is related to pausing. What tactically can applicants do when they're hit with a question that comes from left field, right? Like whether it's a ridiculous ping pong ball question, how many ping pong balls are there in New York City, or just a really random personal question or something, maybe it's a question about a certain stock, what's happening, in the market right now. How should they, what tips do you have there in terms of how applicants can kind of compose themselves?
Take a minute and gather your thoughts. Also, there's some ways to buy time without looking. Repeat the question, clarify the question. Are you asking me how many ping pong balls there actually are in New York City, or are you trying, you want me to tell you how I would find out? Do you want a number or do you want a method? And maybe the interviewer herself doesn't know, right? Ask clarifying questions, I guess, is my short answer to your question. If it's a left field question, try to understand the question behind the question before you just throw out an answer. I think the reason interviewers do this, who knows why they do it, unless they're sadistic. I assume if there is a reason, it's to see how you'd act in the classroom. And if it's to see how you'd act in the classroom, I think a good professor doesn't mind being not challenged, but okay, let me clarify. Before I waste it, it's kind of implied, like, before I waste your time or, before I waste the class's time going off on a tangent or not answering you, let me just make sure I understand what you're asking. I think that works in almost any situation. So that's my first tip. Clarify the question. And then if it's really how many ping pong balls there are in New York City with no further guidance, like some kind of, or current events, or what do you, some loaded thing about politics, religion, personal matters, or really something inappropriate they're not supposed to ask. I mean, I think you have the right, in some cases, not to answer stuff. And if you just don't know, I think it's also okay just to say, yeah, I just don't know. Again, it's not a quiz. What do you think of the recent bond price? What do you think is going to happen with the Zimbabwe currency? You know what? I don't have a great opinion. I don't know that area well enough to have an informed opinion about it. In general, I think, whatever, you can give a general answer. Like, maybe that helps a little. Say something, I guess, rather than just don't know, right? I guess I'd say act the way you hope, act the way you think you'd act in the classroom if that happened in a classroom situation, a cold call. Yeah. Try to look, I was going to say intelligent, it's not the right word, but, thoughtful. Yeah. Yeah. It actually, what you're saying brought me back to a dark place for me. When you were saying, just say, I don't know. I remember interviewing for McKinsey, like when I was coming out of college. Yeah. And they were doing like a case study on me, and I had done the personal part of the interview. It was rolling. I was like doing so well. And then they asked me, some question about parking meters in New York City, and I totally froze for whatever reason. And I literally just sat there in silence in this hotel room with the interviewer for like 5 minutes. I didn't know what to say because I was too embarrassed to say, or like, clarify the question, as you mentioned, or, say, I'm not really sure how to go about this, or whatever it is. I was really intimidated, but I think your advice is really good to clarify the question or buy yourself some more time. Those interviews are notorious, right? Oh gosh, I'm sweating right now just talking about it, even though this was like so many years ago. It's traumatic, and a lot of us approach interviews with scars, with stuff that with bad experiences, the story you shared, or I have stories of freezing up in all kinds of situations. So that's part of the reason that physical practice is the only way to get over stuff like that.
Yes.
And I was making a joke that you're talking about tennis. I have a lot of bad memories about athletics. I'm really uncoordinated, but I was sort of strongly encouraged by family members to do sports just because it's supposed, it's good for you. But just I have all kinds of horrible memories about playing team sports and being embarrassed.
Yeah.
But if I was going to do, if interviewing if it was sports, I'd go back and I'd replace those hard memories with memories of being successful, or at least not embarrassing myself. I'd go whole seasons without hitting the ball.
Yeah.
I would pray to get hit just so I could get on base. Just that sucked. I put up with that for years. It's just embarrassing stuff. And I had a terrible stutter when I was a kid.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Really pretty bad stutter. So all this stuff for me I'm passionate about it because I had to overcome it myself. I'm not a natural. So that's part of the reason I stay on this interview thing, because for me it was transformative to get out of my shell and learn how to speak confidently is not a gift I was born with, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're so true. What you said is that interviewing is a physical practice, the keyword being physical. Gosh, that's really good. And if the more times, like you said at the beginning of the interview, the more times you can kind of stumble around before the real thing, the better in that sense, right? You're less to be caught off guard. So yeah, physical practice. I love that. It really is, right? And I think that's such good advice. I mean, you've been doing this now for what, 15 years?
Coming up on 15, yeah. It was August 2002, so not quite 15. Yeah. But that's when I started doing MBA admissions.
But close. And have you seen any trends during your tenure as an admissions consultant, in terms of, in other words, do you think these principles that we're discussing are timeless? Or do you think what schools have been looking for, or how students should interview has changed or will change, in the past 10 years?
I see more video, right? So schools are doing, London Business School has this new thing where you need to record a short video. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be, as that technology gets just about universal, where they don't feel that they're setting up a high barrier, where they can be accessible, where anyone, anywhere can get online and make a video, right? So in London's providing a third party. They're licensing using someone else's platform. So anyone who can access that platform from their phone, presumably, can apply. But so schools are adding these requirements so that the admissions office can hear your voice. Because in London's case, like a lot of schools, they use alumni. So the admission officer herself is not going to hear you or answers. Mm-hmm. She has to outsource or trust her alumni, wherever you are, to judge just hearing someone's voice, right? You learn a lot about them. So that seems to be a trend, but they're still doing interviews, right? The video is just the short video is just an additional thing. I think it's a little unfair to use video. I think audio only would be sufficient. Why do you think personally.
It's unfair to use video?
Well, not everyone's telegenic. Not everybody, and not everybody looks the way they do on a video camera the way they do in person. I mean, it's freezing right now in Japan, and if you saw me, I look like some kind of gnome. I mean, I don't want to be seen at the moment. I'm comfortable talking to you. If you weren't doing a podcast, if you were doing a video thing, I'd be like, gosh, can we reschedule? I need to shave. People get so hung up about their appearance, and so I think schools. If I were them, I think it's great to require a short audio. I guess the reason they don't want that, though, is they're not convinced you wouldn't be reading something.
Or that it's you.
Yeah, good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Very good point. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I totally So funny story, before we started this podcast, Vince was like, I'm not turning my camera on for this, Darren. So I said, I'm like, all right, that's cool. I understand. But, but basically, just to give the opposite perspective, when I was at my business school, I actually instituted a video question. And the idea, so the reason I think a lot of schools are bringing in these video questions are one, because they're so data rich. I mean, not only do I see you, hear you, it's just like a third dimension, literally, of information, right? And having to rely on someone else's interview reports is just another layer of abstraction in that sense. So I think, yeah, you're totally right there. And then I think a lot of schools are doing the like timed interview, video interviews, right? So they only give you like a minute to answer. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about just seeing how you think on your feet. Because yeah, just the presentation skills are so important these days, not just in the classroom, but obviously when you're looking for jobs. So I understand both sides. You know, there's a reason this is the Touch MBA podcast, and I'm not brave enough like you to post, you know, videos of myself and how I look. No, because like you said, it's quite a lot. So I prefer audio, obviously, but yeah, I definitely expect that trend to grow. You know, I think that software that you mentioned, it might be like Kira software, I think. But I think there's a number of schools using that now. And so I only expect that to increase. So in other words, the interview part, whether you're speaking to a computer or a person, I think is going to become more and more important in the MBA application.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, I just spoke with one of the admissions directors from Michigan, Ross, and he straight out said that they consider the interview more heavily than the essays. So what other questions I want to ask you about interviews? Like, do you advise your clients, for example, to treat an interview with an admissions director differently than with a alumni or differently than with a student? Like, I don't know if you have any advice to give there.
Definitely know your interviewer. I mean, not in the sense of if you can't know their background. So I think a key differentiator is it blind or not, right? So if it was admissions, some schools, they use admissions officers, but that's not necessarily the one who read your application. I'm sure there's reasons for that. I could think there must be at least a few good reasons why they would do it that way. But if it's like MIT, where your interviewer has your application right there and knows it well, or Harvard as well, that's definitely a different beast, because you don't want to repeat yourself, and they're likely to probe into what you wrote.
Yeah.
And whereas current student, and then even then, if it's a current student, like UCLA uses current students now, and that's, I think, video Skype, right? But yeah, so many different flavors of this, and each situation is different. And I encourage people to practice for that interview the way that the interview will be conducted. So if a client of mine has a UCLA interview coming up, I role play as if I'm a current Anderson student, and even if we're in the same city, we'll use video Skype because that's the way the interview is going to be done. So yeah, I think you need to practice authentically for the situation. And if the school's known for doing 30-minute interviews, then we do a 30-minute mock interview. Maybe not in the first session, but we do a few of those. So and even to the point, if it's possible, like same time of the day, if that's manageable, just to replicate the situation as much as possible.
Do you work mostly with Japanese applicants because you're in Japan, or?
I'm about 80-20 these days, 80% Japanese, 20% everybody else.
Yeah.
It's fluctuated a little bit. It used to be a little less Japanese before I went back. Well, Princeton Review of Japan is now called Agos Japan. In 2007, they changed their name for some couple of reasons, mostly business reasons. They just wanted to be fully independent. And I never worked at Agos. I worked at Princeton Review, but I went independent for 7 years, and then I went back there now that it's called Agos, and I'm running the whole department. And that shifted me back to, and their main goal was to have me help as many Japanese as possible, because they pretty much operate here in this market. But I negotiated because I just enjoy helping people around the world. It keeps me, I think it makes me better for those Japanese, the fact that I'm global, if you will, and clients around the world, so that I can tell stories about the questions that so-and-so got asked in France. To what extent is this unique to your situation, and to what extent is this universal? I think I need to keep knowing that if I'm going to be good at what I do.
Yeah,
so about 80-20.
Yeah, because I also ask because, one question I get a lot, we have a very international audience. So they're often concerned, and, I'm thinking of maybe doing a podcast on this at some point, but like things that are lost in translation. I mean, to use that beautiful film that was done. For example, so as you're predominantly advising Japanese, and I think you can lump together, say, Asian applicants might be more of a similar type. Do you have any, are there any cultural things that you advise them to think about before going into the interview? Because let's say we're really focused in this case on U.S. business schools, okay? Like things they should keep top of mind as an American yourself and having been through that process.
Questions for your interviewer. I was in an event last night, and I was chatting with someone about this, and she was saying, and I knew this already, but she was just reminding me, Japanese. She's like, I conduct interviews at my job as part of what I do, and whenever I get around to questions, it's it's considered a good thing here not to have any questions, because you don't want to bother people.
Interesting.
That's one. Whereas in the States, it's the opposite. If you don't have questions, it means you're not interested. It's the single biggest turnoff, or it's a terrible way to end your interview. So, any questions for me? Nope. And the interviewer, was like allotting 10 minutes for questions. Or yesterday I went to my son's school. They're interviewing new principals for the middle school. And I used to teach middle school. So I started down that road of becoming a middle school principal before I changed my career. And so I was curious who his new principal might be. So I was listening to these 30-minute presentations, and it was like 10 minutes of their thing, and it was 20 minutes of questions from the parents in the room. And boy, if that had been a Japanese it's an international school, but if that had been a Japanese context, I mean, good luck. 10 minutes, a 30-minute thing where you're expecting 20 minutes of interactive questions from the audience. I mean, boy, people just don't like to stand out. So that's a huge cultural shift. So we practice. I help them brainstorm questions for their interviewer. If it's alumni, it should be easy. And in some cases, that actually flips back to Japanese, the Q&A part. So in that case, it's not maybe. But if it's an admissions officer, for example, what do you ask an admission officer that you couldn't have found that on the website? So we brainstorm that a lot. Not having questions is a big turnoff. Another one is failure, whereas here you don't want to really talk about failure, whereas, I mean, not just in Silicon Valley, right? But, failure is the currency of no one really trusts you till you failed a couple times. And so shying away from failure or having sort of fake failures or fake weaknesses. Yeah. Like your weakness is basically you need an MBA. No, that's not a weakness. I mean, I've never studied business formally. Well, right. It's not a weakness. That's, you know what I mean? So it's sort of trying not to minimize weakness, minimizing weaknesses, minimizing questions. That's a huge cultural paradigm. That's just flip. You got to flip that. You want to have big failures where you really learned a lot. Which is hard because people are trained here just to not fail. Yeah. It's shameful, right? It's a shame-based culture. So standing out and making mistakes is just not embraced. That's a tough one.
But, if I may, I think that one actually applies to all applicants, right? You're applying to the best business schools in the world. And why would I want to show them that I fell on my face in this project or in this personal situation? I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. there's a certain nuance there. I'm not quite sure if it's how you present it or what you share, but there's some way that I know it when I hear it, sort of thing, but there's a way to present a weakness or a failure that's done tastefully, that shows that you fail and that you learn from your failure and that you're a mature person, you're a real person. But that also isn't at the same time like ringing alarm bells.
Yeah, you know? I'm always late.
Right. So I just want our listeners to, to fine tune that, right? I mean, you still obviously want to present yourself in a good light. Like, do you have tips there in terms of being vulnerable and showing weakness, whether you're from an Asian culture or not?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's universal. That one is not cultural specific. I guess share context. So what I mean by that is using, words like sometimes, or in certain situations, I find it hard to give negative feedback. It's not that I can't. I sometimes avoid conflicts. That's a good thing, but it can be a problem. So, I knew this was a bad decision and I didn't speak up. I didn't want to, for whatever reason in that situation, I didn't voice my opinion when I think my instinct to not speak up in that particular meeting was good because whatever the client was there, or I didn't want that person to, but I really should have taken the time to follow up one-on-one in a safe space and said to this person, look, I have three reasons why I'm really afraid this isn't going to work out. And I didn't say anything, and I was right. And it was a big, costly mistake for the whole team, and we all suffered. And my mistake I don't know if I could have prevented it, but I wish I had said something. And that kind of story, maybe that has the nuance of, so it's contextualized. It's not that
right.
I never, ever, ever do this, or avoiding absolutes, I think, is always a good idea in this situation because of these reasons.
No, that's really good tip. And, any other sort of cultural things that non-US applicants should consider that come to your mind?
I have clients in Europe, and they also don't. Well, one thing, and this gets more back to essays, and I don't want to be gendered about it, but I find it with women kind of more often than men. Maybe because men, we identify with our careers so much, or I don't know, we're just good at sort of puffing out our chests, but a lot of women are just like, I don't know what I want to do in 10 years, like, what a dumb question. And, like, do I really have to have some huge vision for Harvard or Stanford? I'm like, yes, you do. I'm sorry, but you can't just be like, maybe private equity ? It just doesn't, sort of like, which is unfortunate, right? For some of these schools, like you kind of have to change the world or sound like you want to. That's not just Asia, and it's not just gender, but I do have those conversations more often with women than with men. And I just try to be patient. But
interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. Whereas a guy just wants to be, maybe he's more culturally trained or encouraged to say he wants to be the king of the hill or whatever, top of the pile for this or that. For a lot of women are like, I want to advance my career. I want to make an impact, but I'm not exactly sure this very moment where I'll be in 10 years. And can I say that? Is that okay? And there's a nuance there too. So you don't want people just to make something up, but it's more like, what's a potential career path that excites you? What's a story that you are excited to tell for the next, 9 months or whatever, that you can stick to and be excited about and dig into. But I've had clients, again, particularly women, that really, really struggled with this. But on the flip side, once they find something they're comfortable saying, it can really clicks, but that can take a lot of time. But that's not specific to interviews. That just carries itself through, right, from essay through interview, because you don't want to change your goal between applying and interviewing. So stick to what you wrote. So and I noticed you got some podcasts and curriculum about that, and that's a big one, isn't it, for everybody?
Yeah, it's so tricky, because the schools want to know you have a plan, but they also know that many of their applicants will change their plans. So it's this kind of weird ground, but you definitely need to come in with a vision and a plan for how this huge investment is going to pay off for you and what you plan to do. I just think that even if you don't end up following that to the dot, it will still help you get the most out of business school. I truly believe that. It's like going to the grocery store without a shopping list. What looks good at the moment. So I think the introspection and the thoughtfulness that you hear all the time admissions officers harping on is really true. It's really a valid thing that you need to have and do before you apply. This is one of my last questions. Building rapport, right? With the person who's asking you the questions. I think this is such a key thing. At least when I was an admissions officer, like feeling that bond with the person I'm interviewing. And obviously that's harder when you're doing an interview on Skype or over the phone, but I'm sure you've thought about this being an improv person and an actor, like building that connection. Like, do you have any tips there?
Listening. I was going through an interview I did years ago with, so my acting teacher, the best teacher I've ever had, really, in a lot of ways, is this woman, Patricia Madson, who started the improv program at undergrad. I pretty much majored in her, more or less. If I could, I majored in history technically, but I was her TA and she's a big mentor of mine. And I was reviewing some stuff from an interview I did with her in 2011, and she starts off just by talking about improvs about listening. I'd forgotten that. And that's the best way to build rapport, whether it's clarifying a question or just get outside of your head and all the nervousness and focus on the other person, even if you can't see them or whatever, just focus and listen. That's easy to say, and maybe that's not enough, but that's it in a word, the way to build rapport. It's nothing about what you say. It's about what they say and who they are. And that's counterintuitive, right?
Absolutely. Have you read that book, Improv by Keith Johnstone?
Yeah. So he's her teacher. He's her mentor.
No way. Okay.
And he came and taught. I have a photo with us and him. He came and did a series of workshops with us. Yeah. He's a great, and his whole thing about status, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the trick. And that's the first thing actually I wanted to say when you asked the question, but I didn't know if that would resonate.
Oh, but so
listening and paying attention to the other person's status and not more or less mirroring them without being awkward about it, or obvious about it. But yeah, mirroring the other person.
What do you mean by mirroring for those of us?
Well, I mean, it's part of listening, but not insisting on raising your status. Trying to find ways to raise the other person's status, or at least. So Johnstone has this idea that it's really only four options. You're either raising your own status, lowering your own status, trying to raise the other person's status, or lower the other person's status. So lowering the other person's status is easy as insulting people, Donald Trump, right? Mm-hmm. And raising the other person's status is a genuine compliment. Raising your own status is bragging, again, some people we know in the election, or in life, talk about how great they are. And then lowering your own status is what stand-up comics do, right? They're up there on the stage telling jokes, but oftentimes they're telling funny stories about themselves, making fun of themselves or their family or their mother or their, standing in a high status position with all eyes on you. You're the guy on the stage, and yet you're making fun of yourself, lowering your own status. So being aware of those dynamics, but that's a mind. I was going to swear,
that's fine. You can swear.
It was a mind F, that messed me up when I read that in undergrad. Yeah. I was 18 or 19 or whatever. It was like poison. I wish I hadn't known it. Ignorance was bliss. I couldn't stop paying attention. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like taking some kind of hallucinogen where like, whoa, too much information. I was suddenly hyper aware of my own status vis-a-vis other people. I don't mean status like class, but physical, like, are you making yourself bigger? Are you making yourself smaller? being aware of all those unconscious dynamics of how people physically and visually and verbally interact with each other all the time was just overwhelming. I wish I didn't know it for a while. It took me a long time to be aware of it without letting it paralyze me, because I'm a pretty sensitive person, empathetic, whatever, observant, pretty introverted. So that was like a whole, and then dealing with that on stage in improv was, so Johnstone's the man. And Patricia's just one of his disciples, basically.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll be sure to, because I saw you have a bunch of videos on your YouTube channel. I'll be sure to link to those of her, right? Talking about improv.
Yeah, I just made a playlist because I'm starting to edit
this
footage I made in 2011. I was like, oh, she's already got a ton of videos. Yeah, her book is Improv Wisdom, and it's in like 10 languages.
Yeah.
It's so short, and it's not directly about improv, but it's all those lessons are really useful to an interview situation where prepare, but then show up and just be present.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the lesson from, the improv and status is what Vince was saying is listening, but to try to keep your status close to the person that's interviewing you. This sounds really theoretical, but every statement, like even during this conversation, is kind of like a statement, right? Everything. And so, gosh, I love that book so much, but it's hard to explain it. But basically, listening and being present is probably the best way to sum it up. But you can really delve deeply into each, statement, response or dialogue, whether that's in a play or in a conversation. And basically that you build rapport with your friends because you're playing this game of status all the time. And there's this like agreed space, right? That you're in. So hopefully that's helpful to some of you. But if not, definitely watch the videos that I'll be sure to link to. Vince, this has been great. We've been talking for about an hour now. Really appreciate your insights. Any last words of wisdom to give to our listeners? Final statements, if you will, about preparing for the interviews.
I'm not going to say be yourself because it's such a horrible platitude that I hate when people say. But I guess I am going to say a different platitude, which is just enjoy the process. Enjoy the process of preparing. The reason I love doing interview training is because it's interactive, and as you mentioned, I think increasingly important, or at least not less important than it used to be, if not more important. Maybe it's just as important as it ever was, because business administration is about business and about leadership, and that's always going to involve human interaction. So I'm pretty sure it's a lot more fun than studying GMAT. And even if you love writing like I do, I think it's even more fun than writing about yourself, is actually just engaging people in conversations. And I would say don't wait till I'm giving you a couple final things.
No, please
the other one is don't wait too long. I mean, use interview training as a carrot, right? As a motivator even if you're at the GMAT stage. Have informational interviews with the alumni or current students at the schools you hope to attend. Reach out through friends of friends and have a 30-minute chat with a current student or an alum of a school you're considering. And that's it. That's interview training, because you're just talking about, hey, tell me about yourself. So why do you want this degree? Those are common questions. And it just keeps you motivated through the dark hours of whatever it is, test prep or application, filling out forms or writing essays. Or it can be an anecdote to keep you motivated. So you don't put it off and don't think of it as this thing at the end as like an afterthought. It is the whole process, because it involves thinking about yourself, talking about yourself, which is what you're going to do at school anyway, and what you're doing this to become a leader, and that definitely involves communication. So hopefully interview training is the whole thing is about the interview, and that can get you through a lot of the stuff that might not be quite as fun as talking or listening.
All right. I think that's a great place to end. Do you have any questions for me? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I don't want to answer any questions.
Yeah, good. I won't ask any.
Vince, thank you again so much. This has been really great conversation, and I hope to get you on the pod another time. But appreciate your insights, and those of you can follow Vince on YouTube. Just type in Vince Ricci, right?
Yep, RICCI, like I don't know what, but yeah, not like two C's.
Two C's, and
or even Vince Prep. That's why I use Vince Prep, because I'm always hard to explain how to spell my Italian name. Yep.
Yeah, or just Vince Prep, and you'll find a treasure trove of videos there to help you with your application. So thanks again, Vince.
You bet. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your #1 school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.